Good to be with you today. My name is John Millette, and we are talking with a special guest today. You've joined us with our podcast, which is Leaving Your Legacy, Stories About Homeownership. And the reason we do this is we want to give a platform for real estate professionals, people who specialize in the home industry, as well as even first-time home buyers, to really talk about homeownership. And the fact that it goes so much deeper, it's a legacy. It's a legacy in that it goes so much deeper and has much more meaning than just financial rewards. And of course, the financial rewards are amazing. And so today we have a special guest for us. With us today, his name is Tim Freund. And Tim is an amazing real estate professional. To give you an idea of his dedication to the industry, he's an accredited real estate specialist. He's an accredited senior specialist working with seniors. He's an accredited home buyer specialist working with home buyers. And he's a accredited corporate mobility specialist, making sure that he can take care of relocations on the corporate level. Tim has been in the business since 1990. He's sold over 1,000 homes. And I've done a lot of work with Tim over the years, and he is really a great agent, an agent who truly cares about his people. So, Tim, it's great to see you today. Thanks for coming.
Glad to be here.
This is a real opportunity and privilege for us to be with you today. I mean, you've been an icon of the Conejo Valley in our area for a long, long time.
Thanks.
And looking over your bio, I couldn't help but see that you were a drummer before you went into real estate. I want to hear a little bit more about that. You're actually signed by Clive Davis.
Indeed.
Just amazing.
Yeah.
Tell me about that a little bit.
I went to UC Santa Barbara, met my wife there, and I moved into being a musician. Instead of being a poli-sci major, I decided I would just be a professional musician instead. And when I graduated, I was in a couple of bands, left school, got into a band in San Francisco with one of my best friends still today, Danny Benatar, some relation to the other name. And we started a band in San Francisco called Reins, and it was pretty successful. You know, we got to be the hot band of the city during the late 80s, and just sought to get a record contract, which ultimately we did with Arista. And Clive Davis came out and saw us and said we were great and signed us, and we made a record.
Wow.
And now I sell houses.
That's great. That's great.
That's it, yeah.
That's great. Okay, so the first question I have for you, because I got lots of questions for you today.
Okay.
I've wanted to interview you for a long time.
Well, thanks.
So tell me, what are you doing right now in this environment? Because right now it's a little bit of a challenging environment, right? And we have some very interesting things going on. We have some interesting dynamics in the marketplace. Interest rates have gone up. It seems like some people are feeling a little bit, as we call it, cognitive dissonance. In other words, they're not sure what to do when it comes to housing, to home ownership. And so what are you doing right now that really helps you in your work?
Well, the first thing that I pride myself on is knowing the numbers, you know, so I track the numbers of our area specifically, how many homes are listed, how many homes are selling, what's the percentage of homes that are going under contract, because that really tells us the momentum of the market. So, for example, in 2008, if you recall, the market was at a standstill, right? It was right when the crash was happening. And really before the crash actually happened, it just sort of stopped and ground to a halt. At that time, there was just over 10% of all the homes under contract, and there were over 1,300 homes for sale just in our little valley here.
Right.
Compare that to today, where that number is about 36% of the homes are in escrow, and there are 180 homes available today.
Mm-hmm.
So, knowing those numbers helps me to understand what's the direction of the market. And in 2012, I had written a blog. I have a blog, therealestateconversation.com, and I had written a blog that said, this market's getting ready to explode. There's no other way to see it, because there was so little on the market given the number of homes under contract. Something had to give, and sure enough, we started 2013, and we really haven't looked back.
Yeah.
So again, that was just because I followed the numbers. So that's one of the things that I do. So when I'm meeting with buyers, and they say, well, should I buy today? Should I wait? Is it better? A price is going to drop 20%. I just look at the number of homes that are on the market, look at the number of homes that are being sold, and I can see that there's absolutely no evidence that prices are going to drop.
Yeah.
Now, as you and I both know, the market fluctuates. So you're going to see some give back here. It's seasonal. Spring is always hotter. Fall is always weaker. Holidays tend to slow things down. On the first of the year, we had 172 homes on the market. 4 days later, here we are. We have 180. So as you can see, it's already starting to get excited for spring. So we expect to see more homes. More homes means more sales, and hopefully better selection for buyers, which is your end of it.
Right.
That's one of the things that they're working for.
Well, 180 homes is not a lot.
No, it's anemic.
Right.
It's super low.
And so what? How do you work with buyers? How do you help them understand that you do it through the numbers, I know, but how do you help them, encourage them? Because a lot of them are feeling a little bit discouraged right now.
Right. Well, that's a good question, and it's not easy. I just closed escrow with a first-time buyer who I will proudly say was referred to me from their parents' friend. So that's how far the tentacles will reach sometimes. So I'm working with a lot of millennials that are our first-time buyers today because of their parents and relationships that I've had with them. And so, they've been looking for a year and a half. One of the things I will walk them through a home that needed a fair amount of work, but it was a great location in a great neighborhood. The price was in their budget, more or less.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, they had some family that said, what, we'll help get you that water heater. And, we were able to purchase that home. It was competitive. So there was another offer on the table when we went in, but the agent who had the listing is someone I've known for 20 years.
Ah, okay.
And so he wanted to work with me.
That makes a big difference. He knows you, right?
It's a big difference.
Yeah.
It really is a big difference. And even when I don't know the other agent, which has happened a couple of times, I sold a home in the South Bay. My cousin was looking in Redondo Beach.
Yeah.
I don't know the agents from Redondo Beach, but by the time I finished speaking with the agent, they wanted to work with me.
Okay, now what do you think it was that did that? In other words, what did you say on the phone that would create that kind of a magnetism or kind of a draw? People say, yeah, I want to work with Tim.
Well, I let the other agent know that, through agent speak, that I know what I'm doing, that I have a team of professionals behind me that are going to make sure that the deal closes, that we're going to hold up our end of the bargain. A lot of times what agents will do is they'll get a home in their contract, and then they're, persona non grata. They disappear, or they don't get the paperwork done, or they're not following up.
Right.
And this makes it a very tedious and difficult transaction. When you're getting paid half of the commission, right? You're sharing half the commission with the other agent.
Yeah.
You want them to hold up their end of the bargain and do their half of the job. And if they're not doing it, you're having to carry all that. You don't want to work with that person. So if I make it evident to the agent on the other side that we hold up our end of the bargain, we'll make sure our people perform. We'll make sure everything gets done in the times that's necessary. And as you know, in your business, there are time thresholds that you have to make.
That's right. That's right.
So we just make sure that they understand that really clearly, and they can tell. It doesn't take long with a conversation with an agent to know that you're dealing with a professional on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you go, okay, well, I want to work with that person.
Yeah.
Because I refer to them as my partner. We're partners in this transaction. We're going to make this thing close. Everybody's going to be happy.
Yeah.
Solid transaction.
Yeah. Okay. That's outstanding. Okay. So one question I have for you that I've been just dying to talk to you about is that I know that from what you just said that you're doing millennials and working with first-time home buyers, what is it that you do for them that you find helpful? Because right now there's a ton of them that are just kind of on the sidelines waiting for prices to come down, and yet Freddie Mac did a survey that showed that 37% of people who rent can buy, and most of them don't know it. And so there's a huge amount of people on the sidelines sitting out there that would like to buy, but they hear so much media. I mean, the media is responsible probably for a ton of cognitive dissonance of people saying, no, I want to wait, right? I mean, the media is just saying, no, the market's going to crash, or now is not the time, or the rates are too high, when the reality is the rates are where they've been for the last 30 years.
Right.
So what are you doing for them specifically?
A few different things. I have as a moniker on my signature of my email that you don't wait to buy real estate, you buy real estate and wait. Because it doesn't matter who you ask. And I tell this to every first-time buyer when they ask the question, and it always comes up. Doesn't matter who you ask, whether you ask your parents, you ask your grandparents, friends from church, or you ask the people from the little leagues, cousins, second, aunt, first removed. Are you happy you bought your home when you did? And you will get an answer, and it won't be 80% or 85.7%. It's going to be 100%. Everyone, to a person, will tell you, I'm thrilled about my home when I did.
Amazing. Right.
100%.
100%.
100%. So it's hard to see in the forest the trees, right?
Yeah.
And that's what the news and the media is pushing out there right now, that, prices may drop, prices are the highest ever, affordability, this, that, and the other thing. Look, you have to live somewhere. You can pay the landlord's mortgage if you want to, or you can figure out how you're going to make your own mortgage and make your own payments. And sometimes that's getting help from family. Sometimes that's cutting back on, lattes and
right now,
toast.
Yeah, right now the interest rate that people are renting or paying is 100%. Every dime is going towards the rent.
That's right.
They're buying real estate, but they're buying it for somebody else. And I think that question that you ask is really good. Are you happy when you bought? Because seldom do I have people that say, I'm really happy I bought. Now, what's interesting is there's been several articles, especially in the Wall Street Journal, and one in particular talked about how that there are single-family homes being built just for the purpose of rentals.
That's right.
That's right. And they're doing that because people they've been sold the aspect that I'm going to be renting for life.
Interesting. Well, the downturn of the market in the Great Recession, there's a lot of collateral damage psychologically for people. We used to hear that I'm not going to catch the falling knife, and that's part of why people don't want to buy today, because they think prices might drop.
Right.
They're going to owe more than what they paid, that type of stuff. And as you know, the people that are buying today are qualified. They have a down payment, they have good income, they have good credit. So it's not
I noticed that they have great incomes.
Yeah, great income.
I talked to a couple. They said, we don't know if we can qualify. And combined together, they made $150,000 a year, something like that. And by the time we got done, I said, you have no problem. We can do this. And their comment was, they have perfect credit.
Yeah.
Everything was perfect. And when we got done with it, they said, we had no idea that we could buy. And then I told them how much they could qualify for. And they just went wild.
They went crazy.
Right? Went crazy. It's like, you're kidding me. You mean we've been renting all this time? In fact, these individuals, the landlord told them, we're raising your rent. They got really mad about that. So They started looking around at other homes. And as they started looking around at other places to rent, they realized that the deposits that they have to make to get into the home would be almost the same as a down payment because they only put down 3%, and you only need 3% down.
Right.
And now they're clear to close, and they're closing next week.
Fantastic story.
That comes up over and over again.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's hard for the young people to realize that. And one of the things that I will do, in my experience with the millennials, and of course we're talking about a huge group of people, right? People don't realize that the millennial generation is the single largest generation by numbers, bigger than the baby boomers.
71 million.
Bigger than the baby boomers.
That's right.
And by the way, the Gen Zs aren't far behind. I'll have I think it's 68 million.
Yeah.
So it's fairly significant. But so when we talk about them, this group of people, we're talking about people that are 27, we're talking about people that are 42. So there's a pretty wide range.
Yeah.
But going into peak earning or already at peak earning, household formation. The one characteristic that I will say, because so much information is available, and this is where someone like you is so valuable, in my opinion, so much information is free online, specialized knowledge, that's valuable.
Yeah.
Right? That's what you bring. That's what I bring, specialized knowledge, because they can all go on Redfin or Zillow and they can say, oh, well, look, this is what that sold for and this is what that is. But they may not be able to dig into really get into the dirt of why that's the case. So when I'm taking people out, the first thing I notice is millennials specifically are they're sponges. Whatever you tell them, they're absorbing, right?
Yeah.
Now, they may not accept it right away.
Right.
In fact, I would say most of the time they don't. There's like a certain, okay, sure, let me verify that. I love it. My kids are millennials. I love that. But once they figure out that you know what you're talking about, they're like this.
Right.
Right?
Bring,
give me more. They're just devour the information. So when I take a millennial out to look at property, for example, just taking that young couple I was describing who purchased, they bought an $825,000 home.
Mm-hmm.
When we walked into the home, they're looking around. They don't know what they're seeing. They're seeing that it needs work. They're not really sure what it is. The first thing I said is this house needs to be cleaned. This house shouldn't be on the market in its current condition. It needs to be clean, okay? So that's number one. Number two, these cabinets need to be repainted. Somebody put a roller on them. It's just terrible. You can see they use water-based paint on an oil-based finish. That's why it's so gummy.
Yeah.
Easy to fix.
Now, that's interesting that you bring that up. See, the fact that you know that, right? I mean, I've worked with other real estate professionals that may not know that, but that's something that you automatically know.
Right.
And what's really cool about your approach is that you were honest with them when they came in the door. Instead of trying to, make it so, oh, no, everything will be okay, you specifically went through details that most people would not do.
No, it's true. And I had a recent referral. A guy was from France. And it was another agent that not really practicing full-time. It was his client. And he wanted to bring me in. And so we went and looked at a home in the San Fernando Valley in Woodland Hills. And it was an old home. It was kind of curious and interesting, but there were a few things that I could see that were good and they were bad. And I knew that I had a short window of time to basically establish my case as being a professional that they wanted to work with. Because, we were looking at a couple homes and maybe they want to work with me, but, next day they might be like, yeah, that wasn't our guy.
Yeah.
So I've got to put on my best presentation. We're walking up the driveway, and I said, hey, just take note here. This is a huge tree in the front yard. You can see it's lifting up the sidewalk a little bit. When we do our inspections, should you decide to buy this home, we're going to do the roof, which, by the way, looks great.
Yeah.
We're going to do a general inspection. We're going to do a termite inspection, and we're going to do a sewer lateral inspection because a tree like this is going to be putting roots into that sewer line if it hasn't been maintained and hasn't been taken care of. And that could be a huge expense. We haven't even gotten into the house yet.
Right.
But what I'm trying to establish with them is that, look, listen to me, follow my lead. I'm listening to you. We're going to work together. We're going to make this happen for you. And unfortunately, we haven't found a home yet, but we're looking.
Very good. I mean, that's an example of what that would be like with a real pro working with them.
Right. So,
okay. So now I got to ask you, what made you get into real estate? I just wanted to find out a little bit more about Tim because, the thing that's so interesting, and we talk about this to our audience all the time, listeners, that when you graduate from college or when you're growing up, usually your inspiration is not to become a real estate professional, right? It's something else happens that drives you to that opportunity, and then when people begin to realize, wait a minute, becoming a real estate professional is really cool. Because I can work my own hours, I can make the income I want to make, I can make a great contribution to people's lives. So what is it that got you into real estate?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, I had been a musician, which when the record...
By the way, where did that come from as a child growing up?
My mom's side of the family was very musical. And so I always had some interest. I didn't really pick up playing drums until high school.
Uh-huh.
And I went and saw a friend of mine, older guy, play a block party. And the street was closed off. They had a stage, and there were hundreds of people milling about. This is the late 70s. And, it was, that's what I got to do. That's what I want to do. I was just so taken by that experience. And so I played all through college.
Wow.
Then I let things run their course, and the record didn't sell as most records don't for musicians. That's the story. You got the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. Right. It's the next 1% that makes the money.
Yeah.
So I was looking for something to do. Now my wife's family worked for a home builder, and so my father-in-law, when I was married and still playing music. He's like, get your real estate license. It's a good thing to have. Get your real estate license. So eventually I went into just doing some selling, because what do you do with a political science degree? I went into selling and selling ladies' shoes actually in Union Square, and getting used to a commission job, and got my real estate license. So then I worked for a home builder, and I did 14 years as a home builder.
Wow.
And that really is probably one of the biggest things that distinguishes me from most realtors in a couple of ways. When I represent sellers, I'm a salesperson, right? You go to buy a Lexus, you go to buy a Camry, what's the difference? Why would you pay more for a Lexus?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Well, because the salesman just pointed out that it's, leather, and it's, walnut dash, and it's, this type of wheel and this sound system. If you don't have somebody articulate that, where's the value? So for sellers who hire just any realtor, it's like, well, you get any realtor. It doesn't mean they can sell your home to a potential buyer. So I had that background. But the other thing where it really helps my buyers is the construction side. Because new homes, you're sitting in a sales office or waiting for people to come in. You spend a lot of time walking lots, walking construction, walking finished homes, dealing with people's customer service issues. And so you see what is good, what is not good, what needs to be attended to. So that really helps, again, when we talk about things like tree roots. It's my construction background that allows me to articulate to the buyers, this is what it's going to take to fix this home. Yeah. And this is here it makes sense.
Now that's really interesting, because that is a breadth of experience that most people don't have.
No, most people don't.
And especially with that builder, when I read your bio, you sold like 350 homes with them.
Yeah.
So that's an amazing amount of quantity. Now, there's something that's very interesting. I've always wondered about musicians, because as a musician, I've always noticed that they tend to be detailed, and that they're hearing for things that a lot of people don't listen for. And I've often thought, I wonder how that translates into what you do, as
that's a great question.
Because there's this thing about, I was at BYU in a music class starting the first week, and the professor said, okay, now listen for the melody. And then he said something like, listen for the harmony. I forgot what it was. And I just thought, I'm out of here. I can't distinguish between this. And so I dropped the class, right? And so I've always been really impressed with musicians, because they seem to have this, I don't know, they just seem to have kind of this edge on.
Well, the listening is the key. I was in a group playing out of Ventura, just an original combo a couple of years ago, and the bass player had left, and we needed to hire a new bass player. Hire, where everybody's just playing it for free, right? But we needed to bring in a new bass player. And we had a couple guys come in, and I'm the drummer. The bass player is super important, right? It's a rhythm section. So I'm watching the bass player, and the bass player is paying attention to what he's doing, because he's got to remember his parts and remember the notes, that kind of stuff. But that's not the first thing that you do in music. The first thing you do in music is you listen to the other people. Mm-hmm. Because in a combo, everybody has to be at the same level. You have to be listening for, where is their space? Where are you interfering with what somebody else is trying to do or express? Are you even in sync with them, especially with rhythm section?
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until this one guy comes in, and he's just standing right and staring right at me, and just watching me and watching my kick drum. When he left, I said, he's the one that we want to hire, because he was listening. And so when you take that listening skill set with music, and now you talk about, a buyer says to me, I want this, I want this, I want this, and you're listening, it's like, well, okay, let's find out, what is it about that? What is it about this? Okay, what you're really saying is you want something that fits this. Yeah, that's what it is. It's listening.
Right.
So the music and the listening as a musician translate into being able to work with buyers and to get them what they want, to try and make their dreams come true.
Yeah. Yeah. I would think that would just be huge. So when you were growing up, were you encouraged to have music?
No, not so much. Not really. I mean, I played in like everybody else, we did our different, I had a little trumpet, I had a little guitar, a little piano, didn't really like it too much. But it was always sort of an undercurrent. Of course, I love music, so, I had a lot of records, and it just, it ended up that one experience. And of course, being that era, that's when punk music came out.
Yeah.
The thing was that you didn't have to be a great musician to play punk music.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You just had to have a lot of attitude. So that's how, I wasn't a great drummer at that time. I would never consider myself a great drummer, but I'm always a solid drummer, because I know what my job is. My job is to keep the time.
So one thing that's always interesting to me is the way that you take such good care of your clients. So where does that come from? Where does that come from that you are open enough to work with a client that if you don't get a deal, it doesn't matter, or if it doesn't work out, it's okay? So the question is you don't seem to get ruffled when people say, "Oh, I'm going to wait," or "It's just not quite the right time right now." Where does that come from? Where does that care come from that's so genuine, that you can steal?
Well, thank you for that. I would probably point to an experience I had when I was working with Chappelle Industries, S&S Construction for all those years. But early in my career, very early in my career, I was at a job site. And I was standing next to Nathan Chappelle, who's Holocaust survivor, was a billionaire. He's enormously successful. He had like an aura around him. He had a power. It was just intimidating, honestly. Yeah,
right.
He's about 5'2", but it was like it was like a bubble around him. You couldn't get closer because there was just like this thing around him. He's such an intense individual, and had accomplished so much after such a horrible experience. And so we're standing out looking at some lots, and he turns to me, and I'm towering over him, and he turns to me and he goes, "Young man, it takes a lifetime to build a reputation and 1 minute to ruin it." Of course, at the time, he was speaking of his reputation and my working for him.
Yeah.
And I was just like, "Yes, sir. Okay." And that resonated with me, because if you have a reputation of being honest, fair dealing and in good faith, like the contract says, you're caring after your clients, then people will come to you and they'll seek you out. Now, I have the benefit of having some years of success. I've never had to, we've all had struggles, but I haven't ever seen any one deal as being critical to my eating, right? Mm-hmm. And so I could put food on my table. As long as I can put food on my table and take care of my family, the rest will take care of itself. And so if I can, if I have to wait for somebody because it's not their time, that's okay. There's another deal someplace else that I'm going to make money on.
Yeah.
But I literally have clients that I spent 4, 5, and even I think my record is almost 6 years working with as a buyer before they actually bought. In fact, I was just at a a New Year's party on New Year's Eve for a client I sold a home to in Santa Rosa Valley in Camarillo. And I joked with him because he's an engineer, and he says to me, this is back when we were hunting. He's like, you're selling a lot of real estate. I'm an engineer. I think I should go into real estate. It looks like a much better job. And I'm like, oh, man, you have no idea. So sure enough, we're in escrow on a property in Thousand Oaks. Contingency is 10 days. At day 28, we still hadn't lifted our investigation contingency. Mm-hmm. The seller was going crazy just, because my guy wouldn't perform, and he cancels.
Oh, my gosh.
2 days before closing, he cancels because he decided the house wasn't right for him. And I looked at him and I said, "Still want to be a realtor?" So, but the point is that you have to go with people's schedule. You have to go with what's right for them, because it's not about, in my business, and this is about the real estate business, I'm probably sure it's true in any sales business, yours is no different. It's not about the transaction today. It's about the next one and the next one and the referral. And if you don't do right by people in their time of need and their most important purchase of their life, they're not going to send you any clients.
Yeah, yeah.
And if that's your business, you don't stay in business very long.
Right, exactly. Okay, so that leads me into my next question for you, and that is, what do you think, and we've talked a lot about it, so you can repeat some things as well, but what do you think separates you from other real estate professionals? Why would someone want to work with you? And I think that through our interview that we've established a lot of that. But what are some of the other things you find? I find that you come up with details for individuals that most people don't come up with.
Well, again, it's a lot of the background. I mean, first and foremost is I'm hugely ethical and honest. And so that, again, that comes from my experience with Mr. Chappelle. And so I'm always going to have my clients' interests at heart and what's best for them, even when sometimes they don't necessarily agree. I am confident they will later on, but I always put their interests ahead of mine.
So give me an example of that. What would be a story on that?
Well, a typical story would be for a buyer where I showed a buyer a home. They were looking to do it as an investment. And I'm saying, well, what's the goal here? Is it an investment that you're going to move into? Is this a property you're going to flip? Are you going to make it a rental? And I'm digging down, like, because when you sold new homes, we used to have to do a lot of the pre-qualifying because there wasn't a lender on site. We did a lot of that. So I'm like, well, what's the payment going to be? Well, how negative are you going to be? Well, how do you see yourself making money on this transaction if you're losing $2,000 a month? The goal wasn't clear. Were you buying it for yourself? Or you're buying it for investment? If it's an investment, it wasn't a good investment. You're losing money, You're not going to make any money. And so if I wasn't ethical and honest, I would have made the sale.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
If they want to buy the home, why would you not sell them the home? And sometimes people will say that to me. And even when they talk about locations, right? So I'm huge on location, right? Location.
Yeah.
So location is city, neighborhood, lot within neighborhood. That's how somebody taught me that when I was early on in my career. And so you can buy a home that backs
up. Say that again. Say the city.
So location, in my mind, is city, neighborhood, home site.
Okay.
In the neighborhood, right? So like the big three.
Right.
The big three, a cul-de-sac, big lot with a view. If you can get one, you're happy. If you get two, you're really happy. If you get three, you've just hit, the holy grail.
Yeah.
Hard to get all three. So, but I sell people homes that back up to busy streets. I sell homes that are on busy streets. I sell homes that back up to the park or the back up to the school or across the street from the school. But what I tell my clients is, even though I sell these homes, I'm big on location. I don't necessarily recommend it. But if you're going to buy it, you have to buy it at the right price.
Yeah.
Because when you go to sell the home, you're going to have to discount it for these reasons. And that's been the issue with this market over the past 2.5 years. A preponderance of bad locations have been on the market because sellers recognize they can unload them in this market because there's a shortage of inventory.
Yeah.
And so clients look at those locations and they're maybe it's fixed up, maybe it's a flip, and it's really pretty, but it's in a crummy location.
Yeah.
I'll tell them, you're paying a premium, but you're not getting a premium lot. If the market's hot, sure, you'll be able to sell that home just like this guy can. But if the market's not hot and it's down, there's no bottom for a bad location. There's always another seller who has to sell just as much as you do, has a better location, and he's going to reduce his price. So where is the bottom for you?
Yeah.
You're only going to get bottom feeders.
Now, that's interesting. So you risk the transaction.
Always, all the time. Happens all the time.
I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
So you actually tell them the problem before they even enter into escrow or even want to make an offer on it.
I tell them the problem before we even look at the property. Wow. Someone will send me a listing. I'm saying, yeah, okay, well, did you notice that one backs up to, the railroad tracks in Moorpark?
Yeah.
And they'll be like, oh, yeah, I guess I hadn't noticed that.
Right.
Okay, well, or if we're next to the 23 freeway, if we're next to the freeway, great location, except we're next to the freeway. Can you live with the noise?
Yeah.
Because inside the home, it's nice and quiet. But if you want to sleep with your window open,
yeah, that is really something. So that would really build confidence. I know for me, for sure. And tell me some other things. That's really interesting.
Well, and that's part of it. And then, just trying to understand really what their end game is, right? I mean, sure, we all want a roof over our head. We want to stop renting. We want to, build equity. But I really try and dig down into understanding what it is that they want and what they're trying to accomplish. And so by doing that, I'm able to, cut a lot of the peripheral stuff. I mean, those guys that I mentioned that I just closed on, and I just mentioned them because they're my most recent millennial closing.
Yeah.
We hadn't written an offer. That was we closed in November. We had not written an offer since February. I hadn't shown them a home since March, right? So we literally had 6-7 months with the only communication was occasionally I'd send them out, hey, there's nothing on the market. There's nothing that's come up. Don't worry, it's going to happen. We'll find something.
Yeah.
But, it was just a matter of not just trying to pigeon them into something. There are neighborhoods they could have gotten into, but I would tell them what the pitfall was. A perfect example is there's certain neighborhoods that are unincorporated where you can have farm animals and, they're private roads, Newbury Park and different areas that are near us. And there are people that live there, and I have clients that have sold there. They love it. You just have to go in and know it. You have to know that that's a neighborhood that not everybody's going to like. If you like it, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it works for you.
But don't just do it because it's the right price, because there's other stuff that's coming with it that you have to be aware of.
Now, on your bio, you talked about the 3 Ps.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, planning, preparation, and price. Yeah, so, that's about getting your home ready for sale, right? You'll see people rush their homes out. You'll see realtors they just want to get the home listed. They just want to get it sold. And they're not necessarily thinking about how do I get the maximum return from my client, right? Their biggest and most important investment, which could be the difference between doing what they want to do on the next leg or retiring or, assisted care or whatever the situation might be, right?
Especially if they're older, they can generate more income.
That's right. So, you have to look at when is it time to, let's declutter. Let's start with decluttering, right? That's free, it's just time. And then we talk about, what's our marketing going to be? What's our strategy? Who are we going to be appealing to? And then we talk about pricing, and pricing, a lot of times, people don't necessarily look at pricing the way they do when they're the buyer, right? When they look at the buyer, that house is overpriced, right? Why? Well, because of X, Y, and Z reasons. So when I'm talking with sellers about the pricing of their home, we talk about that. Okay, let's put our buyer's cap on. If you can buy that home over on, 123 Main Street mortgage, you could, you can get that home for $800,000. Well, if you could buy your home or their home for the same price, which one would you buy? And that one had the pool and has the new kitchen. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, well, I'd prefer the one with the pool and the new kitchen. Yeah, okay, so maybe we don't want to be $800,000, even though you wanted $800,000 because the guy around the corner sold for $800,000. But this is why he got $800,000. So maybe we need to be priced at, and then maybe we can get it bid up. So there's, those are the conversations, and that's just part of the process.
Yeah. Okay.
That we go through.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so, and I know right now you're with Engel Völkers.
Yes.
You just transferred to them. How's that?
That's good. They're a global brand. Most of my business is through past clients and referrals, some relocation. So I don't depend on the broker for a lot of my business. When I left selling new homes, I opened my own brokerage because I'm a broker. I'm not just an agent. Yeah. I'm a broker. Mm-hmm. So I could hang my own shingle, and I did. And I did that for 5 years. And that's when the market was just that was 2009. Mm-hmm. The market was in free fall. It was terrible. And my business was going up because people were finding that in this time when nobody could sell a home, I was selling homes. That went back to my new home experience. Yeah. Being a salesman, right? Yeah. Being able to demonstrate why a home should be purchased. Yeah. So over another one. So I ended up jumping on with Dilbeck, which was a regional, so family-run company, much like the builder that I had worked for. Yeah. So there was some synergy there for me, and it felt like home. And I was with them for a long time, and I had no real intention on leaving because I was doing my own thing, and it really didn't matter. And then when they were acquired by the Gestalt Group out of Park City, Utah, which they have 50 real estate offices. They call them shops, Beverly Hills, Napa, Santa Barbara, Westlake Village. Yeah. They're all over. When they acquired Dilbeck, I thought, this is an opportunity for me to experience a designer label.
Oh, okay.
Never had that before.
That's cool.
Certainly, Tim Freund Realtors didn't open any doors. Right. It was just past clients.
But
right?
Engel Völkers, they're definitely a designer label.
They're a designer label, and so let's see what that means to have international reach. Does that mean that somebody in some of our more expensive neighborhoods that I don't have a leg in will maybe reach out to me because of the label? If so, kudos to the label. Yeah. If not, it's just another brokerage that I'm working for, and
Yeah. Okay, good. All right. So if you knew, you have this megaphone, you have this microphone, and this will go worldwide. Everybody will listen to it.
Okay.
What would you want to, just in kind of some closing, a few questions, what would you want to say? What's really in you deep down core about what you're doing and how you see the market, and what are the things that you would want to say where everybody would be listening?
Well, the market goes up, right? I mean, it dips and it goes down, but it's going to continue to go up forever as far as I'm concerned. And in the day when the real estate market stops going up, we have far greater concerns globally than we're going to have in the real estate market. So from an investment perspective, real estate is how wealth is built in this country. It is the roadmap for the average Joe to build a true nest egg and to accumulate wealth. And one of the things that a lot of people forget about, and I explained, and this is particularly true with our first-time buyers, is that this concept of leverage. I buy a $500,000 home, or I buy $500,000 in stock. If I buy $500,000 in stock and the stock goes up 10%, I make $50,000, right?
Right.
If I buy a home for $500,000 and put 20% down, I put $100,000 down. And if my home goes up 10%, it goes up $50,000 the same. But I didn't put $500,000 into it, did I?
Right.
Stock, I put $500. On a $500,000 house, I put $100. How much is $50,000 of $100? I just made 50% on my money.
Mm-hmm.
That's called leverage.
Right.
And that's what buying a home brings to a buyer. Leverage with other people's money for you to become wealthy. There's a joke, which is the way to wealth is keep your first house and your first spouse. So
there you go.
You buy real estate and you wait, and we'll let the prices rise until it's time to move again, or whether you keep that home or you move on to another home. This is how wealth is built. So real estate as an investment vehicle is essential. And this is why a lender like yourself is so important at opening doors for people who might not get them. This is where equality in lending is so important. We have a history in our country of less than equal. And so groups have had more difficulty obtaining capital. Yeah. And so that's something that we as a nation need to work on, as an industry need to work on, because this is the great equalizer. When you own a home, you will have legacy wealth. I think you started the conversation with that. And you will have something to pass on to your family, something you can retire on. And so it's super, super important. So, real estate is the ticket to great wealth.
Very cool. And what would you say if a lot of millennials were watching you right now? What would you say to the millennials who are really just discombobulated? I mean, just really confused, and they don't really have all the facts because the media has swayed them. What would your message be to them?
Well, I mean, call John, and have a conversation. But just understand that the market is, for the foreseeable future, we are going to be in a tight inventory environment. We talked about the millennials when the biggest generation on record, looking to buy homes, having income. We talked about even Gen X being a very large group. So there's gajillions of people for the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years are going to be buying and selling homes. The baby boomers, my age group, our parents who are the silent generation, they're not moving. They're not selling their houses. We touched a little bit about the downturn in the market. One of the things that happened in the downturn of the market, and you talked about subdivisions being built specifically for rental. The single-family home rental industry was a mom-and-pop industry throughout, our history until the Great Recession, when companies like BlackRock and American Homes for Rent
bought thousands of homes.
Tens of thousands of homes, tens of thousands of loans at 10 cents on the dollar, because Bank of America didn't want to keep the bad paper. And so they acquired these vast, what are now real estate investment trusts, or REITs. This huge inventory of real estate that is not for sale. 30 years ago, it would be trading hands. That would be part of our consciousness and our inventory. They are not coming.
Yeah, we took out like 770,000 homes out of circulation.
Out of circulation.
Yeah.
Couple that with the fact that from 2008 to 2013, as a nation and home builders built very few homes. There were so many homes. Talk about catching the falling knife. There were so many homes. Yeah. Builders didn't want to build homes. They lost lots. They gave lots back to the bank. They just didn't build anything. So for 5 years, we didn't build anything. We would have had to build twice as many homes from 13 to 18 just to make up for 2008 to 2013, and we did not in one single year build as many as we did in 2006. Again, I follow the numbers.
Yeah.
So that tells me we have a huge generation of people that want to buy, as well as the generation behind them that are going to want to buy, a whole generation of people that aren't selling, a whole conglomerate of Wall Street investors that aren't selling, and we never built as many homes as we should. Means inventory and supply is going to be short, certainly for the rest of our lifetimes.
Yeah.
And probably well into the majority of our millennials' lifetimes. They're going to be short inventory. There aren't going to be enough homes. So competition is always going to be fierce. So anybody who thinks that that's going to change, I would say it's probably not. So therefore, you want to look, you want to be ready, you want to be pre-approved, you want to have your ducks in a row, because when that home comes on the market and you want to present a good offer, you got to have a good agent, you have to have a good lender, you have to have everything ready to go and be ready to pull the trigger. And then you'll get your home. And then when you get your home, you move in, you enjoy it, you love it. And when it comes time to sell, you go, that guy, Tim, he sold me that home. He did me right. I'm going to call him to sell my home, or I'm going to refer him to my brother who wants to buy a home. And so that's how we stay in business. That's how wealth is built. It's a win-win situation. And it's, unfortunately, there's a saying, a joke. The difference between a California driver's license and a California real estate license, not everybody in California has a driver's license. So, who you select is very important. Whether it's me or somebody, one of my comrades or equivalents, I would say is the way to go. Experience does matter.
Yeah. Okay, good. And then because of your accreditation for senior specialist, what's your experience working with seniors, and what is your comments for them? And
so, seniors are an interesting,
very special group.
It's a special group. It requires a lot of patience from an agent.
Yeah.
You really have to watch out for seniors because, unfortunately, my mom's 89. Seniors are vulnerable. And so people can talk them into stuff. I mean, my gosh, if I got another QVC thing from my mom, I love you, Mom. I tell you what, it's so risky out there. They need to find an agent that they can trust who's going to be able to help them, or if they're doing a reverse mortgage, someone like yourself who's going to be like the rabbi that we talked about, needs expertise and guidance. So patience is super important. Honesty and integrity is critical because of the vulnerable population. And then in terms of, what do they need? They need to know that it's going to be taken care of, that their kids are going to be taken care of, because a lot of times they're concerned about things like the inheritance legacy they're going to be leaving, and they'll make sacrifices themselves, as to living in their home long past they should, instead of going into a facility where maybe they'd be better off. And it's just kind of listening and kind of getting to the bottom of that, being very patient, because those sellers typically come to me later than they probably should, but it still takes a long time, to go through stuff. And then, working with the families too, and things like, after death and probate, and helping the family get through the process is part of it too. But, the seniors are a special group of people. I enjoy working with them. Tends to be more women because they tend to outlive their husbands. And they just really need help. And sometimes it's years before they actually will sell. I'm just referring them to a handyman or a roofer or a painter, or I had one who was having trouble getting insurance, and she's probably not going to sell. It'll probably go to the kids, and hopefully the kids will know to call me. But it's, we went out and took pictures of her house in the best possible way so she could get insurance, because the insurance was looking to cancel it.
Yeah, that's interesting to bring that up, because the seniors that I've worked with, I actually have family members call and say, I don't really understand what's going on. Can you tell me what's going on? Yeah, it's
a lot of that. Listen, I mean, you know what the contracts look like that we work with. They're really thick. There's a lot of legalese.
Yeah.
One thing that I do with every buyer, and it really doesn't matter how old they are, and it doesn't matter if they've worked with other realtors, because it's actually pretty common that the realtor that they've worked with in the past doesn't do this. We're going to write an offer. Okay, I want to go through every paragraph in the contract with you. I know you've written an offer with somebody else, John, but let's just go through every paragraph.
Yeah.
And we do that. And it takes 20 minutes, takes half an hour. I mean, literally going paragraph. This is what you're signing here. This is what you're signing here. Did your other realtor do that? No, they just sent me the DocuSign every time.
Wow.
And
that is so important, because that's they're committing their life savings and their assets, their intergenerational wealth, right there.
Yeah. And they don't know what they're signing because they haven't gone through it. And, it's just DocuSign these days, right? Click, 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 and
Right.
it's off. So, I make sure we do that. So I'll tell them, we're going to do this one time. Next time, we don't have to do this, but I want you to understand what you're signing here. And it's not like the world was going to come crashing down. If they didn't read it, they probably were going to be fine.
Yeah, but the care and concern is what you're...
It's about developing trust,
Right.
and just listening and working with people and making sure that they understand what they're getting into. What are the pros? What are the cons? And one of the things I really try to do is keep my clients from making a mistake.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm.
I can't make the decisions for them. They're going to make their decisions, but I can mitigate the mistake. I've done my job.
Very good. All right. So question for you. We finished our transaction that we did together.
Yeah.
It was great working with you on it. What were some of the things that you liked? What were some of the things that we were able to...
Well, I'm glad you asked, actually, because it really went super smoothly. I mean, one of the things, obviously, you've been doing this a long time, and your team has been doing it a long time. And so things happened without me having to be on top of you. A lot of times somebody will go to an online lender or big conglomerate Rocket or one of these companies, and I'm dealing with somebody in Detroit who doesn't know about me, doesn't know about the client. They're just, it's just a crank out the machine type of thing, a meat grinder. And, with our situation, we went through several discussions of different types of approaches, for everything from reverse mortgage purchase to a traditional loan to shorter term duration, longer term, all these different things. And so just walking through with a professional like you and having my client feel so good. It's funny because we didn't even know, right? I adopted her as a client. Come to find out that she's working with you, I was like, wow, how does that happen? She was coming from LA, remember?
Yeah.
And so, just your team and the way you handled everything so smoothly, and really kind of went the full circle of options, because a lot of times that's not what happens. They don't go over all the options, and every buyer is different and needs to go over the options. And so we went the gauntlet, and she got her home. We had our loan approval. I think I got a call from your assistant or your processor like 12 days and we're approved. I'm like, wait a minute. I haven't even finished my investigation contingency yet. How am I approved already?
Yeah.
So you got that taken care of. Appraisal was ordered. Everything ran super smoothly. So, from a realtor's perspective, that's exactly what you're looking for. Is that partnership where that loan person is doing everything that they're supposed to do, going the extra mile, making sure that the buyer knows all their options and they can make the best decision for them. And a lot of times you're working with financial planners and you're working with, family and different things. So you have a lot of moving parts that you have to contend with. And it is for me too, but I'm sure you have the same, and you handled it well. That was a smooth one.
Great. Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, it was great. No, it was excellent.
All right, cool. All right.
Thanks
so much, Tim. Well, Tim, it has been a pleasure.
Thank you, John.
It has been so great. And is there anything else that you would like to make any comments on?
No, I think that we pretty much covered it. I think it's going to be a prediction for 2024. We're going to have low inventory. Prices are going to go up. Rates are going to probably come down a little bit. It's a great opportunity. Be ready, find the house, buy the house, live happily ever after.
Okay, very good. Wonderful. That's great.
Okay.
Good.
Thanks so much, John. Appreciate it.